Hey, I'm really excited to be here. Let me check. Okay, it's live. Hey, so thank you so much, Abigail, for inviting me here. I'm so excited. Um, yeah, so today I'm Gabrielle, and I'm going to be presenting on activating the divine feminine archetypes. So, so welcome. And firstly, I'm going to be taking on a little journey today. The first thing I just want to ask you the question. Wait, I'm just making sure everything's going. I'm live and I'm all in the right place. I can't see anyone's comments, so I'm just going to go with, okay, yeah, just checking all the settings. Alrighty, so I just want to ask you the question, how do you show up in your life every day, in your work, in your family, in your relationships, you know? And whatever that may be, the divine feminine archetypes are here to help. So let's dive in. So basically, archetypes are kind of like imprints or patterns of behavior, of thought, of energy, okay, that can inspire us, and be a model for our behaviors and also our psyche, and they can just be like energetic blueprints, and they operate on a mythical level. So, which means that it's like we have our ordinary day-to-day operating of our functional, of our brain and of our operating system, and the mythical level is like it's an archetypal level. It's a level that inspires us to a greater reality in which we're all connected, in which, and it's also inside of us. So basically, the archetypes can inspire us, can call upon us. They can kind of crash in our life sometimes through different situations, but they also can be found as a longing in your heart, when you're longing to be more vulnerable, longing to be more connected, longing to be more free, more creative, more spontaneous. So those are all different ways that the archetypes can show up. So they're like deep patterning, and they're within our DNA, but they're also within the world at large and humanity at large. So chances are that many of you found yourselves thinking in the pattern of smaller, confined, contracted stories or belief systems. So what does that look like? That's like kind of like when we have those deep knowings inside of ourselves, like I am not enough, I don't matter, I'm always going to be abandoned no matter what I do, I'll always miss the boat, I'm ugly, I always mess things up. So notice all those are negative ones, which do show up a lot. So, but they're very contracted, confined, and limited stories that keep us stuck, and that also don't represent our real truth, or nor our real nature. So the divine feminine archetypes call us to, when I talked about the mythical level, that's our small story. So our small story consists of all those beliefs that we construct from our past experiences, and some of them may be somewhat positive, but the archetypes call us to another level entirely, and to transcend and go beyond the confines of our smaller stories. So they can invite us to a new level of awareness and invite us to live our lives at a whole new level. So I just wanted to share a couple of resources that I found really interesting. People who have explored the divine feminine archetypes. And one is Jean Shinoda Bolen. You might have heard of her. She's quite a well-known psychologist. And she wrote, amongst other books, she wrote a book called Goddesses in Every Woman. Here, I have it here. Beautiful. She's written other really great books as well. So she explored the divine feminine archetypes. And another resource that I found really interesting is the 13 Moon Oracle deck by Ariel Spilsbury. and she also explores divine feminine archetypes. So, yeah. I personally felt called at one point to dive into that archetypal work, and I did a whole year of studying around the 13 Moon Oracle. So it was really amazing. So in terms of like the feminine, obviously there are masculine archetypes, but we're talking about the divine feminine. So they invite us to explore a range of embodied experiences beyond the normal range that our culture might kind of encourage us or allow us to operate in. So for instance, like if you take our Western culture, there are a few archetypes, feminine archetypes, that you'll see you'll see them a lot, and they're promoted. We're socialized to fit into some of those archetypes, and this might sound stereotypical, but it's still, I think, really true. So, like, think of the archetype of mother, virgin, maiden, crone, prostitute, okay, yeah. So it's either, and what's wrong with those is that first of all, they're very limited, and they're divided between good and bad, and also ultimately, okay, they are all come from, they're perceived through the lens of the outside. Someone from the outside looking in and looking at, let's say, a woman and seeing her as a mother or a virgin or a maiden or a crone or a prostitute or whatever it may be. It's not according to the woman's subjective lived experience. So what I find really, really amazing about working with these archetypes is they're inviting us to experience the full range of what it is to be a man or a woman or a human being. And we all have masculine and feminine aspects in us. So it's inviting us to that full depth of range or whatever is inside of you and exploring that. So that's really, really cool. So according to we're not going to be able to activate and explore all the archetypes. So I just want to give you an idea of some of them. So Jean Shinoda Bolin, she derives a lot of her work from the Greek pantheon, Greek mythology. And so we have like the virgin goddesses, the ones that they're basically they were not in a relationship, or they were autonomous and sufficient unto themselves. So Artemis, who's the goddess of the hunt and competition. There's Athena, who's a warrior goddess, but also a father's daughter, goddess of wisdom, crafts, and a strategist. And Hestia, who's the goddess of the hearth and temple. She's a wise woman. And then there are the vulnerable goddesses who were vulnerable. They actually experienced abuse and in some cases rape and terrible things like that if you study Greek mythology. But they're vulnerable because they're in relationship too. And we're going to talk about that later. Like Hera is the goddess of marriage, commitment, homemaker. And Demeter, who's the goddess of, is a nurturer, the goddess of grain and mother. And Persephone, who is a maiden. And at one point she was captured and brought to the underworld, and she became queen of the underworld. So she represents receptivity, and also she's the mother's daughter. And then finally there's Aphrodite, who stands a bit on her own, and sometimes called the Alchemical Goddess. She's like goddess of love, as you probably know, falling in love, and also of beauty, and alchemical because she represents a magical process of transformation. And I'm just going to pepper in a few more. So there's the Great Mother, which is the mother that holds us all. You can lean back and really feel supported by the Great Mother. There's the Mother Mary, or the goddess of infinite compassion. And sometimes we see her like as a violet flame, a beautiful flame of compassion, for self and for others, including forgiveness and this infinite love. There's the priestess who holds the space and amplifies whatever she sees. There's the creator-destroyer, sometimes represented by Kali, if you know the goddess in the Indian pantheon, Kali, who comes and wreaks havoc, but in the object of liberation, to liberate you from all that, is shackling you, is tying you up. So sometimes Kali visits, people talk about, losing their job or all these things happening, and Kali can wreak havoc, but it's in the object of, for the purpose of your liberation. And the creatrix is the Lady of Communion. It's like if you're doing trying to launch a creative project, it's she can really help you. She's a joining of masculine and feminine forces. She's also connected with Artemis, and she's very single-minded. And the Muse is goddess of like spontaneity and fun. There's also the wise crone woman. There's the weaver dreamer, who's like a connector and brings people together, and also brings synchronicities together, makes connections between all kinds of things. So that's just to mention a few, just to give you an idea. But so, and I can't see any comments or anything, so excuse my limited knowledge of how to work this technology. So I wanted to ask you, ask the question, how these divine feminine archetypes work in real day-to-day life, like when the rubber meets the road. So remember that the archetypes both call you, like universal principles or mythological patterns. So they call you, let's say, as I said, someone loses their job, or someone hits a block in their relationship, or hits an internal block, and then you have a longing for something else. That longing is almost like a calling, but they also are within you. So they're within you, and they might show up in your life. But today I wanted to just illustrate this through the story of Rachel, which is not her real name, but I'm just going to use that to preserve her anonymity. And so it's basically a bit of her relationship story. So let me just share that with you. So Rachel had a strong connection with her grandmother, which turns out was really important. But her parents were kind of they weren't too present to her. They were busy with their work and with other preoccupations. So yeah, they weren't very attentive, and she was alone a lot at home with her older brother, who was very neglectful, and he ignored her. He went out with his friends, and he humiliated her sometimes. He made fun of her. So, she was very wounded by that. And so what happened, just in a nutshell, Rachel ended up kind of embodying what I sometimes call a Raggedy Ann pattern of needing to be taken care of. So she had that kind of internal pattern, and so it was not surprising. But I met Rachel much later, and when she was struggling in her relationship. So what happened in her relationship was her partner wasn't very demonstrative. He was more, he was reserved, but also had trouble expressing his feelings, and was kind of walled off. There wasn't emotionally, he wasn't a big connector, and so he didn't have a lot of show a lot of appreciation or connection or caring. And he was more like a knight in shining armor, but he had a lot of trouble with the vulnerability part. So when he heard Rachel cry, or when she had emotions, she expressed emotions, or had expressed her needs, and she was she had that abandonment wound, so she was needy sometimes, which, that's just the way it was. And he got fed up with being the noble knight. He felt, oh, I have to be noble and take care of her. And basically he shut off more and more. And he wanted her to stop complaining and whining and doing all that stuff. And he wanted to be appreciated. So he was like, I'm not appreciated, blah, blah, blah. So Rachel did try her best to meet his needs because she was very nurturing and caring and so on. And she had a strong nurturing side, but obviously she's like running on empty a lot. And so the crisis happened when they had a baby, and she needed to be nurturing towards the baby. And so the nurturing side is kind of like the Demeter, which is the nurturing, the mother goddess, and Hera is the wife goddess in simple terms. So they're both vulnerable goddesses. And what happened when they had a child, things began to unravel because Rachel's reaction to having to nurture more, like she was already nurturing beyond what she could muster, she wanted to save her nurturing for her child. And so she withdrew more and more from the relationship, and she took refuge in her work, and she built her business. And she became she was very admired and liked by her clients and her friends and her business colleagues, and she grew in that area. And so she went more towards, I'd say it's like the goddess Athena, who is a strategist and a goddess of crafts and warrior goddess who built something. So she kind of gave up this whole vulnerable goddess thing because it was like a pain in the butt. It was really hurting her. She was being continually hurt in her relationship, and she saved that for her child. So she found a lot of meaning and self-esteem in her work and her clients and her circle of friends. And they admired her for creativity, her flair and fashion sense, and her deep insights and all that. But the thing is, a lot of the self-esteem was derived externally. So deep inside, she still carried that wound of not feeling not good enough. So all this, it helped her. It helped her feel better about herself, and she was saying, "Oh, I feel much better," because her confidence had really tanked in the relationship. So that was all really great, but she still felt so disconnected with her partner and her relationship. And every time when she returned to her relationship, she was expecting her partner to cheer her on and to be her, root for her and root for her successes and say, "Wow, can't you see that? Look what I'm accomplishing." And I'm also moved from being, you wanted me to stop complaining. Now I'm more autonomous. I'm doing all these things. And how come her partner wasn't responding to that and being admiring her like her friends and clients and colleagues did? And well, that's because he was stuck in the old pattern and in his own drama. So at this point in the story is when Rachel got an invitation from Aphrodite, the goddess of love, sometimes known as the Alchemical Goddess. And she experienced this through a health issue. So to make a long story short, I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of it. This health issue brought her to the awareness that she wanted to feel and experience this love at a whole different level, not just through her work, but deeply in the depth of her soul and her feelings of tenderness, and she wanted to experience her vulnerability as well. So she really felt this call. So the Alchemical Goddess is the one of unconditional love at all levels and in all the senses. You can experience her through all your senses. and through an appreciation of beauty, your beauty and the world's beauty and others' beauty. So Aphrodite was calling her to feel her self-worth at a whole different level, including her wounds and her past trauma, including her mistakes that we all make every day, and including her challenges, and also in all her glory. So let's just remember that the Alchemical Goddess invites us into the magic process of transformation. And think of taking a love potion, but not the kind given, to manipulate people, to make them fall in love, so that they, to control someone's feelings, so that they're like entranced and smitten. But more, it's a potion that stirs your soul, where you're no longer satisfied with things that are less meaningful or that don't really connect with your soul deeply. And it stirs the vulnerabilities of your heart. So it opens up this huge depth of feeling of, wanting connection, love, and beauty in your life, meaning. But the danger with vulnerability is that it can make us dependent. And so we risk getting hurt or abandoned. And that's a real and big danger. Not to be underestimated. So because like Rachel had a deep abandonment wound, and previously her partner, she'd experienced her partner rejecting her, walling her off. It was like really, really hurtful. So that was very scary to her. And so now she was called to embrace herself at this level, but how could she share that with her partner? That was like a big, big dilemma for her, So she felt like she was faced with a choice. Either she shows up she explains to her partner what's going on. Look, this is my experience, and blah 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 blah. And the problem was that the way he was receiving it is that she was giving him instructions of how to be, and that she was also complaining and dissatisfied with his responses to her. So it didn't go over very well. It really didn't. So she was excited, and how come also he's not, I'm going through all this deep stuff and opening my heart up like it's cracked open, and he's just like this, knight in shining armor with the armor, and you can't get behind the armor, and he's stuck in that, and he's not really, doesn't really want to be that armor anyway. So it's like it wasn't working at all. And so what was she going to do? Either she could do that, or she could just withdraw and keep on doing her own thing, and that would just lead to further alienation. And so that's what she ended up doing. She ended up okay, I'm going to live kind of two lives. One here, and I'm going to just go with, the routine and take care of the baby and, whatever. But there wasn't a lot of connection going on. There's a lot of dissatisfaction. And then her other life where she's like pursuing her career and opening up and doing her personal work. But it was kind of disjointed. So basically her partner hadn't caught up yet to the new patterns, and she didn't know how to invite him into that. And but she ended up feeling like really hurt and abandoned a lot. Yeah. So basically I invited her to experience this magic process of transformation of the alchemy of Aphrodite at a deeper level, and to really learn to hold herself in unconditional love, and this, to feel it from the inside and fully, and to embody herself as a healed, loved, abundant, and beautiful woman and human. and simultaneously to let go of her control over her partner, over the interactions with her partner. And when she started to do that, it was the control bit, because she always had a little bit of control, trying to manage his reactions and manage the whole relationship. It was like a big burden. And when she started to let go of that, she also let go of a lot of bitterness and resentment. And he started to respond. So he started to step up and respond to her invitation. So, and which was kind of like a miracle, because she had been trying to micromanage, like control the way he responded to her. And his real authentic response was way better, beyond anything she could have imagined in this, scenarios that she'd been created, how she wanted him to respond. So because it was really coming from him authentically, so their relationship suddenly became much more authentic. And there was a holding of a space of compassion for both of them. And so suddenly she also opened up to his experience, which was a whole new thing, because he had been kind of shut down, but she was also holding him at bay, and as well not able to receive from him because she was so much in her abandonment wound. So that's kind of the story, Rachel's relationship story, healing story, I should say. And now I just want to invite us now to, I want to mention some of the other archetypes that were helpful in this story. So there was, okay, just give me a minute here. Okay, so I'm going to mention some of them here, and I have so there was the Great Mother archetype. Okay, so the Great Mother is, imagine just the universal mother, like that mother archetype who can hold you in their arms, where you're feeling held perfectly and you can totally surrender and let go. And the reason I have this burgundy blanket is sometimes to help us experience that. Burgundy is her color. So like wrapping yourself like in a burgundy blanket. I invite you to do this now or another moment. You might not have a burgundy blanket. That's not the only way, but I'm just saying that's her color. Allowing yourself to feel wrapped in the Great Mother's arms. And maybe you have a mother wound that comes up, like a wounding with your own earthly mother. And that's okay, because this is an invitation to begin healing that wound and to begin receiving. Because what happens sometimes when we have a wound from our mother, earthly mother, our capacity to receive is disrupted because, we weren't safe and we weren't held and we weren't, so we had to, even as a baby, somehow we took on stuff that didn't belong to us, and we had to defend and protect and block. We couldn't be relaxed enough to receive. So it's learning how to receive. So that was a big part of Rachel's journey, because that had been blocked with her. So that's one of the archetypes that was really helpful. And then, boy, it's fast to switch. There's the goddess, Mother Mary, or Kuan Yin, or the goddess of infinite compassion. And so that's really, think of meditations where you, first of all, go into your heart and connect with your frontal lobes here, where we have a witnessing brain here. Okay, so it's connecting with our experience. Like, it could be our also difficult experiences. So we have difficult experiences that we experience physiologically in our body, where there's been trauma or disconnection and things have been cut off, like these passages have been, ruptured or disrupted or cut or, repressed. Parts of us have been pushed down or exiled. So the healing is reconnecting that. So it's reconnecting with our heart and our body, and then whatever is coming up for us, if it's a difficult experience, if it's a loving experience, we might be feeling waves of love. It's bringing our witnessing mind to our current experience, and that's where a lot of healing can happen. And we need to go slowly sometimes. So, and included in the Goddess of Infinite Compassion is forgiveness. So forgiveness is a kind of, there's a whole process to it, but there's a letting go that can happen. Letting go, forgiving ourselves, and having compassion for ourselves, which is super, super important. When our brain is in compassion, up here we're bringing all these neurochemicals down to our whole body. And the other option up here, we can be in compassion, we can be in agenda or judgment. So it's either compassion, agenda, or judgment. Agenda is like, I have an agenda to control you. Judgment is I judge you. Or compassion, right? So we can have agenda of ourselves, beat ourselves up, I didn't do well enough, I judge myself. Or compassion for ourselves. And compassion is the doorway to healing. It's a necessary, when they talk about mindfulness, it's a necessary component. So it's a big, beautiful energy. And what else? Yeah, I think those are the two main ones I want to mention today, because I think those are the ones, if you want activating divine feminine archetypes, I'd invite you to first think of the Great Mother, the Goddess of Compassion, and then today I mentioned a lot about the Alchemical Goddess, the Goddess of Love, who stirs the longing in our hearts and opens us up to that deeper transformation. So those are the three that I think I would, inviting you to step into, like, just feeling into those and feeling how do they touch you. Can you do something to experience those energies on a daily basis so that you can bathe in their frequency and begin the healing journey that comes from those. And yeah, so I'm going to finish my presentation now, and it's been such a delight. Here I'm getting something else, and very happy to be here. I wish I had the ability to see the comments if there are any and respond. I don't know why I'm not. So I'll be leaving, but I just want to say coming next at the top of the hour is Jess Barrow, and you're in for a treat. She's going to be talking about the importance of creativity in your life. So I can't wait to hear what she has to say. So I'm going to read her little bio here. But I personally have worked with Jess, and I collaborated in one of her books, and it was a totally amazing experience. I would recommend to any of you who would think of writing a chapter in her next book about soul alchemy, I believe it's called. If you feel like that, jump in and do it. So Jess Barrow is an energetic alchemist, intuitive channel, and USA Today best-selling author. As founder of House of Indigo, a multimedia publishing company, she supports spiritual leaders in sharing their unique gifts and creating a product suite that packages their intellectual property into oracle decks, companion workbooks, and books. Jess lives in Maine and homeschools with her husband, daughter, black lab, and cat. And she loves gardening, communing with nature, spirits, hiking, exploring nature, being around water, traveling, and personal development. So that's what's coming next. And just want to say it's been super here being with you, and sending you all good things for a beautiful day. Thank you.